I think we are live. Welcome. This is episode 2 of Authors After Dark. This is my version of a writer's lounge where I just talk to other writers or people in the industry um, and talk to them about craft and talk to them about what it means to be a writer and what their writing practice is. In just a few moments. Oh, here she comes.
We're going to get the author of the Last Colony trilogy, S.A. Sebuchi or Sebuchi. I'm not sure on the pronunciation, but I'm sure she'll tell us here in a minute when she gets into the room. I met her for the first time last March. Hey, Jill. During the Stephen King Writing Challenge, the first writing challenge that I did, and we've kept in touch. And she also ended up being an ARC team member, which means she got an advanced reader copy of my book, The Anchor of Time, when I was in that stage before my initial launch and release of that book. So we've kind of known each other virtually for a while. And it's going to be really cool to catch up with her. We're still kind of waiting for technology to catch up here. It says I'm waiting on her to enter the room. But until then, talking about, oh, she's unable to join. I think you try again, honey, and see if we can get you back on here. A request can't send. Uh-oh. So I'm going to send you a request and see what happens. This is what happens when you have a live show. And this is what happens when you use technology. We're sending these messages through space, and they're coming back to us on the internet. So sending her a request right now, seeing if that can work out. But yeah, I'm excited to talk to her about the Last Colony trilogy. It's adult speculative fiction. She does write dystopian fiction. It's really going to be really fun to talk about world building and other things like that. I sent it. Let's see if it goes through. Fingers crossed. But on her website, it talks about it. It says, adult speculative fiction, a post-apocalyptic dystopian adventure. In a world ravaged by radiation, the last colony has gone to extreme measures to ensure successful human reproduction. But is it worth the cost? Oh, no, you're unable to join again. I'll try one more time. Yay! It worked! I was like, we'll just keep trying, and I'll just read about your website if I can't get you on here. Oh, it's so good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. I'm glad we figured this out.
We totally did. I'm going to turn my volume up. Oh, perfect. Awesome. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Awesome. Well, welcome to Authors After Dark. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on here and just talk to me about your author and writing journey and like what makes you tick as a writer. I was just reading about the Last Colony trilogy on your website. Adult speculative fiction, a post-apocalyptic dystopian adventure. Let's start at the beginning. How did you know that you wanted to be a writer?
The very beginning. That's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Well, I always liked writing. It was always something I enjoyed doing. I wrote poetry even in grade school and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And in my teen years, I was always writing, but it was very angsty stuff,
Oh, yeah. I had a lot of that, too.
Yeah, the moody stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was my outlet. It was my release of all those crazy emotions. And so I always knew I wanted to write. It was just, I had to write to get it all out. But then when I went to college, it went away. It was so strange. All of a sudden, that dying drive to just get that emotion out totally, it just disappeared. And I was really confused about that. I was like, well, I don't know. I thought maybe it was because I didn't have teenage angst anymore.
Maybe.
And I mean, I'd still write sometimes like narratives and journal entries and stuff, but it wasn't the same as in my teen years. But then after I had my first child, it was so strange because it's like stories just started like falling in my head. And it was a different desire than wanting to just write to get emotions out. It was like stories that wanted to be told.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. It was when I had my baby. I read that your brain chemistry changes, or
Something
I don't
changed.
know. Yeah, something changed.
Yeah.
And so ever since then, I've had the drive to write, but not to get my emotions out, but to just tell stories. And I mean, you know how that is when like the characters live in your head and
Yes.
they're real people.
Yeah,
they're our
totally.
imaginary friends, and we have to tell their stories. They bug us if we don't tell their stories.
It's like we live in two worlds. I spent a lot of today doing some research on world building, and it feels almost kind of like you're disconnecting, because you are, to get into that creative space and to create, that story, which, when you do write science fiction and when you do create, an entire world, you really have to immerse yourself, and those details are so important, and they just take time. So in terms of The Last Colony, you wrote this after you had how many children do you have?
I have two.
Two.
So, I started so my daughter, she's 10 now.
Okay.
And I started when she was a baby. So it was a long, it was a long process. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. I just had to tell this story. And so it, I don't know, I think it took me maybe, I can't even remember, 4 years to write the first draft.
Yeah.
And it was a mess. Oh my gosh. It was like,
massive rewrites.
Yeah. Well, it was too long. I didn't know that there was like limits on words. Or, I didn't do any research before I started. And so when I got to the end, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like 150,000 words. It's way too long.
That's a long one. That's a long one.
So then I had to just.
It's good though.
Yeah, I know.
You might have part of book 2 in there. You never know.
Well, actually, I did it. I mean, yeah, the book 2 was a whole different plot.
Okay.
So I think I spent 3 years editing it and trying to get it down to like publishable word count. And then a few years, I sent it out to people and got feedback. But then just life got crazy, and I didn't work on it for a few years. But then, when COVID happened and we were all locked in our houses, I took advantage of that like so many others. Like, I think you too, right? That was the advantage you got to take. And so I was like, okay, I need to dust this off and get it ready. And so I spent all last summer querying it, and,
That's
had
awesome.
all the great rejections.
Stephen King got rejected. You're in good company. Stephen King got rejected a whole lot.
Oh, yeah. I know. They all do, right?
Yeah.
And so then towards the end of I was doing the Pit Mad, the pitch contest on Twitter. And towards the end, I did one in September, and my publishing company, Sage's Tower, liked the pitch. And so I submitted to them, and they liked
awesome.
it.
I love to hear a Pit Mad success story, because I've done that a few times. I'm like, is anyone out there? It's me, Tina. It's just like the scroll and the feed comes by so fast. If anyone's listening, Pit Mad, and help me out here if I butchered the definition, it is a part of a rolling series, I think, of ways to kind of pitch your manuscript to agencies and publishing houses that are looking for your type of manuscript, whatever that may be, and you basically, within a tweet, have to pitch your entire book, which is actually amazing practice. Like, even if you don't participate in Pit Mad, those sizzle lines are what sells books when people are scrolling through. The sizzle line for your back matter, and I read a sizzle line just at the beginning of this Authors After Dark episode. Having a concise blurb that sums up and reels people, and it's like dropping a stone in a pond. You want to see that one little kernel about your book kind of radiate out, and like, oh, I'm kind of interested in that. At least that's how I have to put these in a metaphor in my brain, because I'm like, I don't know how to do that, and I think it's so challenging. So that's also amazing that you managed to condense what your book was about in a way that made Sage's Tower Press, correct,
Uh-huh.
respond. So that's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Thank you. No,
Um,
you're right. It's a total lottery. I mean, what did they say? Like 100,000
mhm.
people do pit
So many
med.
people.
And there. I mean, how many agents are there really?
Yeah. And
Maybe 200. Like your
yeah.
chances are so low.
And you're really like the etiquette is you're not actually supposed to repost your what you've already tweeted. There's like all this etiquette. Like
Yeah.
you can like someone's thing and that's cool, but if you retweet it, it means that you're an agent that likes it or some there's
No,
some
it's the other way
rule.
around.
Is it the
Yeah,
other way
yeah,
around?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
okay, okay. Yeah. And so retweeting's good, but if you heart it, they think that you're an agent and might be like interested, but really you're just trying to so there's like actual like internet etiquette about the whole
Yeah.
pitch. It's only a few times a year. There's Sci-Fi Fantasy Pit. There's Pit Med.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And there's one other, I think, in like the fall.
I'm discovering there's so many. I
Are
feel
there
like I
so
go
many?
on Twitter and like, oh, there's Kiss Pitch. What's that?
Oh,
Okay,
that's
well, and
cool.
then there was some other one. There were two last week that I've
Oh,
never heard
cool.
of.
I've really not kept up on my Twitter game. I think Twitter intimidates me a little
Oh.
bit, so I get on there
Ah.
occasionally and I'm like, here's my newsletter. Oh, right, it's cool. And then I come back to Instagram where I'm like, these pictures soothe me. But
Okay.
I follow you on Twitter and like all my Stephen King Writing Challenge buds, I have you on a list that pops up. So I'm like, oh, you're hanging out, you're doing stuff. But I really feel like Instagram's where I want to be. And
Have you
speaking of,
tried TikTok?
I haven't tried TikTok. Have you tried TikTok?
Oh my gosh. Well, our publisher was trying to get all of us to join TikTok. So that's
It's
the other
hot.
great thing about my publishers. All of us authors, we have a Discord, and it's so supportive. It's been so great to meet all the
That's
other authors.
great.
Yeah, that's been fun too. But so we all joined TikTok at the same time, and some of us are better than others. I'm not so good.
Yeah.
It makes me feel very old. I mean, it's definitely it's different. It's
Yeah.
different. But
Yeah.
I've heard for marketing right now,
Yeah.
TikTok is where to go.
That's what I've heard too
I'm
for author
surprised. You
marketing.
should try it, Tina. I think you're good at marketing. I think you
Oh,
could do
thank
it.
you. Thank you. I always feel like the internet's this void and that I'm just talking into it. And so
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So I think too, like just having these interviews, like just seeing your face, like, because I sent you a T-shirt and a book, and I'm like, you're
I
a
know.
person.
Yeah.
Because you read the art copy, the advanced reader copy of my book before it's released, which is
fun.
that's such a fun thing to do. I had not been able to do that yet for someone, but I think it's so cool. And I think as I'm becoming an author, and I'm delving more into the entrepreneurship, I think it's really cool. This is so different than publishing in the 90s. You know, I think of the authors I looked up to growing up. I could have never gotten on Instagram and talked to Judy Blume. You know, just
Right.
like the access we have to the people that are making these amazing stories, you know, that's one of my biggest things that I love about Instagram is talking to an author, which I consider a coworker, and chatting about their books and then reading it, because you also get a really good insight into their creativity, their thought process, their writing. I'm so excited to read your work, you know, just based on, like, also it's up my alley. I love sci-fi. My next book's got a bit of a dystopian slant to it. So I think that's, you know, it's just really fascinating. You know, this past year has definitely sparked that dystopian ideal in us a lot. I just read Sleeping Beauty in Hell by, and I can't remember the name of the author. I will put it in the comments at the end of this video. And she's an indie author, and her whole plot had a pandemic plot. And I'm like, well, we're going to see that a lot, you know. Art imitating life, life imitating art. When can we expect to see book 1 of The Last Colony?
Okay, it should be coming out soon. And the title, I changed the title because at first it was just the first one was called The Last Colony, but now it's called The Edge of Cascadia is book 1 of the series.
Nice. I love that title. Edge of Cascadia. Meow.
Took me 10 years to figure it out, but it's
That's why you know it's a damn good one.
So hopefully soon. It has been a long road of editing. But finally, it's in its final read through. So it's just like final checks for.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then it will go to formatting. And so I think we'll probably be making an announcement soon.
Okay.
I would imagine in the next couple months, hopefully it will go to pre-orders, but I don't know for sure yet. I'm kind of in line too. There's other authors that are before me, so.
Okay. So from Hitman to now, how long has that been, your journey with your book?
That was September when I signed my contract.
September 2020?
Uh-huh.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so it has been fast.
That's been I think that's very fast.
Yeah. Well, and they're a startup, so when I signed on, they didn't have a ton of authors yet.
Okay.
And so it's been kind of fun. We've all been growing together, and they're learning, and we're learning with them, and it's been a really fun experience. So
that's so cool.
Yeah.
I have an interest in finding a publisher. I'm self-published, but I'm very, very curious because I love the community that you just talked about. You have the Discord with the other writers. You have a publisher to talk to. You have someone that's following up on your vision with you. And I will say, as an indie author, one of the reasons, thank you so much for the compliment about marketing. I try really hard. I try really hard at it. And as an indie author, and I know to a certain extent in the traditional publishing world too, authors are doing more and more of their own promotion. But again, indie authorship, it can be lonely. So and so I hear you talking about that. You're growing together. I'm like, there's an appealing aspect to that tribe feeling, especially with such a solitary type of pastime that writing is.
Yeah, you're so right. Yeah, it feels like they're my coworkers. Like you kind of said, the other writers are our coworkers, and it's nice to kind of go through the same stages with them. Like as they're going through editing, we can share our experiences, and we can empathize with each other, and it has been really helpful, definitely, to have that community. So yeah, how come you decided to self-publish? I've never really heard your story.
It's funny, before March 2020 happened, I was already planning on publishing in 2020, but it was going to be May, but everything changed because of everything changing. And, it came, my husband at the time worked in tourism, and I worked in a salon, and so we both, within a week, both lost our jobs.
Oh my gosh.
So it was really scary. We lost our jobs. We were completely we were on food stamps. I think we had someone helping pay our electric bill. It was really crazy. And we had savings, but it was just like, when is his job going to start? It was just such a weird time. I don't know if anyone thinks back to those times. We just knew so little. And it was really scary. And it was just like, now is not a good time to release this book, but it's a great time to work on creative projects, which is what I did. And so I actually started writing book 2. I made book 1 better. I feel like more time with it made it better. I'm working on a second edition now for it because I'm a perfectionist, and I know there are a few misspelled words, and there's a few things I want to change. Not plot-wise, just
some polish.
Some polish. What your book is getting now, I kind of was like, it was so important for me to get it out too in 2020. I think it became a real touchstone of, well, the world's falling apart, but I'm going to work on this creative project that nourishes me. And so it really got me through it. And so it was super important on an artistic and a soul level for me to have this book baby and emerge from the pandemic as I'm an author, because I wrote it over 6 years. I wrote it in the early mornings and on lunch breaks. I didn't plot it out. It was just a story I knew I needed to tell.
Yeah.
So much of your story, emanates, reverberates in my heart, because I'm like, I was there. Being I don't know what's going on, because I had an on again, off again relationship with writing, where there were times when I was younger where I just couldn't not imagine writing, and then times where I put this whole book down for a year or two, and I was doing other things. I bought a house and got married, but put the book aside. It's such an accomplishment too, and I think the fact that you already have a trilogy planned out is amazing as well. Now, do you have a lot of work done in your next 2 books? Like, what are your plans for future projects? Because it does say trilogy on the website.
Yeah. Well, I have book 2 almost all the way written. I maybe 3/4 of the way written, and I have it. I know what's going to happen. See, yes, I learned from book 1. I wanted to plan out my second book and my third book. I didn't want to end up with 50,000 too many words that I had to cut. So
yep.
It's much easier, I think, if I have some guidelines. Like, I know, okay, I can only have this many chapters and this many scenes, and that way I won't go over. And so when I started writing book 2, that the first time we did the Stephen King writing challenge, I started working on book 2. So that was like last summer or something. The first time we did it.
Yeah.
And then I kept going, and it was amazing how much faster I was than the first book,
It's crazy. Doesn't that, like, I've noticed such a difference in my speed and my copy and everything, and I'm like, well, I had a whole book to practice, so
yeah,
it should be better.
Yeah. And getting feedback on the first book, like getting the editing feedback, I felt more confident. I knew what I was doing. And so I almost finished that, but then before I finished it, then I got the publishing deal for the first book. And so then all my time went to editing, and it was just like, like intense editing for 6 months. Like, whew, oh my gosh. And I really missed writing. And then we started to do the Stephen King challenge again. We were going to do it again. And I had just pretty much finished all the major edits.
Nice.
And I thought I was going to go ahead and finish book 2, but I just kind of needed a break.
Yeah.
You know, like, it was just so intense, and I had been in the editing zone. I just needed to write something different. I just to write. And so I started a whole new book, a vampire historical fiction romance that had been like bugging me for a while.
Yes,
and
please.
I was like, okay, I'll just try it. Yeah.
Vampire romance historical fiction. Well, if you need a beta reader, let me know.
Oh, okay. Yes, I will soon. So I started that. That was in March, and I kept going with the Stephen King writing challenge.
You crushed it.
I know. But see, it was because
how many thousands of words did you get in that challenge?
Okay, what did I end up with after the 2 weeks? Oh, I can't remember now. Probably like close to 20, maybe.
You had over 20, I think. I remember mentioning you in a post, because I really struggled. I had just finished my rough draft of Shadow Glass, and like,
you had a lot going on.
It's such a push, and I was just like, I just don't have words right now. So I did like some heavy outlining, which for me, now that I've done a book, I'm like, man, an outline's your friend. An outline stops you from writing 50K that you don't need. Yes. Or that might be book 3, or a novella that you could release. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. I love the outline now.
Yeah, I am definitely a planner now. I have like a whole chalkboard wall where I do the rough plan, and then I go back and I have notebooks and all the stuff. So what is your daily writing practice like?
So, I have really just tried to keep up with the Stephen King writing challenge ever since we started in March. And so that vampire book, I just crossed 83,000 words. My goal for it, though, is 85, and I'm going to go over. But I think I'll hit around 90.
That's still good.
I only have, I think, 3 scenes left, and I'm going to try to keep them under control. And so I'll be 5,000 words over, which is totally manageable, and it's still publishable. Manageable. So, that's kind of my routine, is I try to write 2,000 words a day. Do
you start in the morning?
I am, like, you guys are crazy, you 5 a.m. people. You're one of them, aren't you?
I don't do 5, I do 7. Okay, I'm a very reasonable 7 a.m. person.
I still get, I'm a night owl. If I'm going to do the crazy hours, it'll be at 2 in the morning. Like, that's when I turn on, like, my brain starts working at night. But I really found that the best time for me actually is the afternoon, because if I get a writer's high, because you know how that is, like, you write a really good scene and you're just like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And then your brain just won't stop. It just keeps going and thinking and plotting, and I can't sleep. Like, so I've realized I shouldn't write at night. So I try to do it in the afternoon. It's hard because I've got kids, and
So say, how does that work out with the kids? And they're getting home from school, or I don't know what school's going on over there anyway.
Well, we homeschool.
Okay.
So, I mean, really, it was an easy transition for us when COVID happened because my kids were already used to being home. But I have my kids' cousins are our neighbors. And so there's 5 kids just like running in and out. It's like
nice.
It's kid madness. It's good for them. Not so good for writing.
I would not be able to concentrate.
I used to have dead silence, no one bothering me. But somehow, I think it was because during editing, I had no choice. I had deadlines.
Yeah.
I had to edit.
You had to get it done.
And I had so much work to do that I had to be able to learn to tune everything out. Like the kids could talk to me and I just had to, sorry, I can't hear you.
You had to get it done.
Now. So they kind of learned, okay, when mom's on her laptop,
don't
bug her. And, and now I can actually be interrupted. I can be in the middle of typing and they come in and they need something and I can go right back into it. I used to not be able to do that, but I can do it now. So
it's like a muscle, right? And getting like into that zone and being used to it. Like for me, I make sure I try to sit down around the same time every day. And for me, it's morning.
7.
Like 7 to 10 is probably my most productive. And I wouldn't say I'm writing the whole time. I do some other things around that time. I answer emails. I do morning things. The do morning shit part of the Stephen King Rowling Challenge. I'm real good at that. I do morning shit, but I really try to like sit down as soon as I can and start writing. And I've done Artist's Way in the morning pages, but for me, I just want to jump into a scene. And so a lot of times too, I'll leave myself like a note or a sticky note if I'm writing. Like this is what needs to happen in the next scene. So just make sure that happens. Because for me, if I'm going to sit down, like, just waking up, I'm like, I just leave myself a note. I'm like, oh, okay, I can do that. And just pretend I'm at a job, It's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of fun. Now that I work at home more, I definitely have these little life hacks to, like, trick me into, like, and now I'm at work, and now I'm doing this. Because you've got to create that writing space, to create that creative space, whatever that means, whether it's lighting a candle, or incense, or putting on music, or your favorite jammies, whatever gets you there is the most important part,
Yeah.
So,
definitely. So do you use any writing software?
I do. I use Scrivener's to write my rough draft.
Me too.
I love Scrivener's. I love all the notes features.
Yes.
This time around, I'm doing something a little different with Shadow Glass in terms of editing, because I feel like the last way I edited was so ridiculously painful, I never want to do it that way. So I printed it all out, and then I went through with longhand and made changes, and now I'm going through and I'm typing it all back in. I'm not going to the original document.
Wow.
And I'm doing, and I have to say the first day was really slow because I was kind of getting used to it, and I also have like a list of notes that I made through my last pass and like numbered them with like, you need to look up the name for this thing that's in real life. Because I'm trying to create a historical vampire adventure story in 1944 Germany. And I'm just like, I want it to be kind of accurate. And it's like a whole heist thing is going on.
Ooh.
I want to have some fun, but I also am like, Deborah Harkness, like her attention to detail with especially with history and like all that stuff that she builds, it just makes the story so much richer. And so you think as a fantasy fiction writer, you're not going to do any research, or that's so wrong. You do so much research, so much research. You do not make it up. You make some of it up, but a lot of it's research. What did you do in terms of world building for the last colony?
Well, a lot of that was from my imagination, but also, since it's a post-apocalyptic, there was a lot of things I had to research, like how would the world look after nuclear winter? And I remember I found this site once also where it was like a population calculator where you could put in like the starting population and how many years pass, and it would tell you like what the population would be based on, like, you could say how many kids you want each family to have. So, because I had to play around with how many people are in this colony, this last colony of humans on Earth after the apocalypse. They've been down in bunkers.
Mm-hmm.
And so how big would their population be? And so stuff like that, you know, where I try to make it realistic.
Yeah.
Even though it's totally fiction, but you kind of want to root it in something so it's realistic at least.
Yeah.
And I mean, and it's always been fun to look up all those weird things, the stuff you
That's
learn, you
yeah,
know?
it's so interesting. I immediately started thinking of like the Star Trek The Next Generation episode where they're all from this colony planet and they're basically
Oh.
pseudo-Irish and they go to their sister colony that got separated and they're clones and they've been unable to reproduce, so they've just cloned themselves. But they need fresh
Oh.
DNA because they've over-cloned. Like the
Oh.
clone genome is not
Oh.
doing well. Oh,
Oh
gosh, so this
no.
must be in like season 4 or 5.
I've
It's a
never
great
seen it.
episode.
Sounds
Oh,
good.
really? Yeah, you should check it out. But spoiler, one of the resolutions is that the women in the end to help the clone colony out have to take on like 4 or 5 husbands to help
Oh.
make the whatever, you know, which I
Uh-huh.
thought was an interesting slant, especially for a show in the 90s. Letting the women
Yeah.
have multiple husbands instead of the other way around.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, Star Trek, okay. Oh, well, it's been so great talking to you.
Yeah.
I can't wait to read The Last Colony and get to know your writing a little bit more.
Yeah.
You will be posting that on your Instagram, I'm assuming, and on your Twitter.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
What's your...
Updates are coming.
Okay, great. And if we went to your profile, do you have a newsletter or anything like that we can sign up for, or do you have a website? You have a website, obviously.
Yeah. I don't. I know I need to do a newsletter. I have not done that yet. So.
That's okay.
Yeah. Maybe you can give me pointers on that.
Oh, man. They're fun, / I'm always like, does anyone read these?
Yeah. Again, it's just sending it out there, right? Sending
Yeah,
it out to the internet.
I feel like it's like sending it to the future because I'm like, this is for when I do get a little notoriety. People are like, well, she's been doing it for a while. Look at this email from 2020. You know what I mean? That's what I tell myself, to be like, this matters. But the newsletter is fun once people, you know, are really like, what are you up to? But as far as Twitter and stuff, what's your handle on Twitter? Remind me of that.
So that one's just a Sebuchi.
Okay, and it's Sebuchi.
And then on Instagram, it's SAS, well, just SA Sebuchi.
Okay.
And TikTok, it's SA Sebuchi also.
Okay. So you're on
Yeah.
TikTok. If you're on TikTok, I should be on TikTok. I just have to figure out what... I just thought it was for people that like to dance. That shows how out of it I am.
There is a huge book talk community. Oh my gosh, it is huge. So just go on. You can search for me and click on mine and like follow some of the people I follow, and then just start watching book talk stuff, and you'll get kind of like a sense for what people are interested in. But it's the same thing. People talk about the books they're writing and the struggles they have, but it's only a minute long. Your videos can only be a minute long.
That's fun.
And some people get super creative. Like they have really fun little clips where their muse is talking to them and they're like trying to resist
that's
the
cool.
creativity, you know. So those are fun. There's some great stuff on there, and I know people are selling books on TikTok. It's you should do it.
That's some top tier advice. So I will find you. You'll be my first person on TikTok or follower or however that works. Oh, well, thank you so much for joining me on my second episode of Authors After Dark. It was so great to meet you in real life and just talk shop and have a little writer's lounge and hang out with you for a minute.
Yeah, this was awesome. We should do it again. This was
absolutely. I would love to do this again. Yeah, totally. We'll do a room sometime and get Lee on here and
I'd
have
love
a whole
to meet
reunion
Lee
or
also.
something. She's hilarious. Oh, and she has some ideas for some upcoming writers' challenges that might be kind of fun.
Oh, yes.
Talking about a Neil Gaiman one in particular she mentioned in last week's episode where you would be writing one document while you're editing another one. That's his challenge, which kind of keeps your brain fresh is the idea.
I've never done that.
I know.
I'm always doing one or the other.
Yeah. I was thinking recently it might be nice just to have something that I'm writing for fun that can turn into something while I'm editing my hardcore stuff.
Yeah.
Because secretly I want to be a romance writer too. But on that note, I will let you go to enjoy your evening. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see everyone soon on next time on Authors After Dark. Bye, y'all.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.